All right, folks, welcome to another edition of the At 10 Gallons Concrete Podcast. We are coming to you. This is the end of the first quarter as far as college football goes. We're 3 weeks into this. Is that right? So we get 12 games. We've played 3 weeks. First quarter's over.
No, I don't want to hear it.
Well, this is the first quarter if you have zero hopes of making it past Thanksgiving weekend, which for if you are a Florida fan, if you're a Florida State fan, that is highly, highly possible. You got a couple super hot seats. You got some hot seats on some charcoal grills down there. So everything's going bad in Florida, which as a Tennessee fan, nothing makes my heart happier. Like if y'all don't know me that well, Paul and I have been friends for, since 18 years now. Yeah, that's crazy to think about. And as everybody knows, Paul is a giant Alabama fan, rightfully so. He grew up down there. And so I've always, we've been rivals, and I never really like hated Alabama. Like even before, Nick Saban, I never like hated Alabama. They were just a rival. It didn't bother me. It doesn't bother me if Alabama goes 11-1 every year. That one loss being Tennessee. But Florida, I do not like anything coming out of the Florida Gators camp. I don't even want their quiz bowl to win anything. I don't root for their chess team. I don't like. I don't root. I don't wish anything positive for the Florida Gators program in any of them.
That's hilarious. Yeah, growing up, I didn't really like the color of your jerseys over there at Tennessee, but Auburn was the big focus for us growing up, and so I don't mind seeing them lose to Cal last weekend. Where they can yell War Eagle as much as they want, the team still stinks. And we're going to keep marching on. Our teams are looking good. The only thing I want to say about college football is the Tennessee has a starting quarterback whose name nobody can pronounce. And there was a great meme that I sent to you, Joey, and to a couple other people of this young girl. She can't be 6 years old, and her dad's like, say the word spaghetti. She's like, Paschetti, and she can't say spaghetti right. But then he says, who's the starting quarterback of the Tennessee Volunteers? And she pronounces Nico Iamaleava perfectly.
Iamaleava.
Yeah, whatever. And he's like, why can't you say spaghetti? She's like, that's not even a real word. So, that's just the education of Vols fans and the evolution of Vols fans all in one thing. But you know what is also evolving? That is the ability for ready-mix concrete producers to use manufactured sand in their concrete. They're doing that by Actigel. So please, 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 if you're interested in the Actigel, give us a call. You can email us, info@activeminerals.com. We're there for your pumping, paving, shotcrete needs. And if you're looking to use more man sand, we got you covered. Folks won't even know the man sand's in there. We are going to be in Denver, the Concrete Works show that is in October. If you're going to be there, look us up, booth 109. Love to have you come by. If you're wanting a private audience with us, best thing to do is going to be get a meeting on the books as our schedules start to fill up. Again, info@activeminerals.com. You can find us on LinkedIn and socials. You can go to the show page. You can find us there. We're monitoring all the social medias on that stuff. It comes to us. So don't worry that's going to some intern somewhere, don't know what he's looking at. You can just send it through there and we'll get it. We can get something on the books. The other thing that's evolving is these crazy PhD kids running around in the university trying to do stuff. And we actually touched on this in a previous episode, but it was behind a paywall. I wanted to see how they were electrocuting concrete to make cementitious materials. Well, our boy Ron Mackin, shout out Ron, friend of the pod, a great listener. Appreciate having him in the audience. He emailed us the paper. He found it, emailed it to us. I had a chance to read it. So they were not using Thor's hammer to inject lightning into the beach, but what they were doing were putting electrodes into the sand, and they would send a certain amount of current through a certain type of sand, and it would form calcite or brucite. And the different calcium carbonates or magnesium hydroxide precipitates that came in would harden that sand. So it's an interesting concept that if you have a marine environment where the seawater is coming in and it is repeatedly eating away at the shore, you can turn the ions that are in that seawater against themselves, use them to your advantage in that eroding soil, that eroding sandy soil, and by having the right type of electrodes and the right soil conditions, you can actually harden that coast and prevent the erosion from going any further. So, a very interesting concept. It will not replace, shotcreting and soil nailing of construction projects as we typically know them, but it could allow for these calcium and magnesium based minerals to form and harden the coast, save the coastline. So there you go. Fun fact of the day. Very interesting paper. It was really neat to read.
Much to my disappointment, it wasn't just some old boy with a welder and a bucket of sand. I was very disappointed that that was not the case.
No, no, that certainly was not the case.
That was honestly the first thing that came to my mind when you mentioned this. Is I was like, I'm just envisioning in my head, like, okay, what produces a bunch of electricity, and with some sand or whatever, and that's yeah, some old boy with a MIG welder or something in the shop somewhere. Which
Oh,
could
that would.
which could still happen. I mean, never underestimate the mind of a redneck with a will. So,
Yeah, no, that's fair, and it looks like a lot of this research is coming out of Northwestern University. So,
mhm.
want to thank the folks at Northwestern for pumping lightning into sand and seeing what we can do with it.
That's pretty incredible. Uh, Another thing that we are going to follow up on, and this we first talked about this. I don't even know when it was. It was like years ago, obviously, because we took a year off. But we got to talking about electric concrete trucks and the possibility of that. And at the time, we didn't really think it could be a thing. And it's still not a thing in the United States. I haven't heard of or seen any hint of that being a thing over here. However, over in Europe, or in Australia, in this article's case, they are rolling out electric concrete trucks in Melbourne. They are rolling those out, and this article was just published today. So it is very, very new for Melbourne. It is the brand is Sany, Sany, if I'm pronouncing that right, and supported by Putzmeister, which everybody knows. Wholesome, Wholesome is a concrete producer that's running those down there, and this article just kind of grew more questions than answers for me. I clicked on it because I remember us talking about it, and so I just got to read it. And it's a quick little article. Mostly, I just wanted to look at what these things looked like. Now, if you Google this, if you look it up, wholesome electric concrete truck, whatever, you'll probably find it pretty easy. It looks like the drum looks like it's maybe, I don't know, 6 to 8 yards instead of the full size 10 or 11 yard trucks that we've got. So that wasn't a surprise. We kind of anticipated a smaller drum because of the amount of power that it would take to turn a 10-yard drum filled with concrete. So that wasn't surprising. The What was surprising was the amount of battery life these things they supposedly have at the end of the day. They said even after a full day of work, if the truck rolls for 150 kilometers, it still has 30% battery life at the end of the day, which I thought was actually pretty good. I mean, that's what I would want. I mean, I wouldn't want to be on the verge of running out of juice by the end of the day because of how long it would take to charge this thing. And they will charge fully overnight, I guess, from a dead battery. It would charge overnight, or if you had one of these rapid chargers, it would take about 3 hours. So it's it was interesting just because I thought this was like super brand new because this was the first time I'd heard of anybody running an electric concrete truck. So I'll jump over on YouTube, and apparently, like you know, I saw videos from Ireland and a couple other places in Europe, and this one's in Australia. Haven't seen anything out of Asia or Eastern Europe or anything like that. But I was surprised to see that a lot of these videos were between 2 and 5 years old. So they've been a thing. They've been researched for quite some time now, and I'm kind of wondering if this latest rollout in Australia, if maybe they've ironed out a lot of kinks. So I'm anxious to see what comes out of it.
Yeah, the only industry I know that's doing anything like this is there are some underground mines
Hmm.
that deployed electric vehicles underground, which makes a ton of sense because
Yep.
if you haven't been in an underground mine, I just quickly you could be 100 feet below the surface, you could be a mile below the surface, 2 miles below the surface. The conditions are still the same. You're in a
Hmm.
tunnel that has, and the most important thing in that tunnel is the ventilation system is
Yep.
the most important thing, and you got to have air pumping in and out. And the trucks, whether they're haul trucks, wall scrapers, I mean, they could be concrete trucks that are driving down there to make shotcrete in the underground tunnels.
Hmm.
They're all emitting the fumes that you would imagine a combustion engine is emitting. And so when you're dealing with that, it just really it's very loud and the air quality is very poor. So if you can get into a situation where you've got quality vehicles that are battery operated, it's a great place for that technology. Volvo is actually the company who's pushing that forward in the
Hmm.
mining world. When we talked about the concrete trucks the last time, the number one thing we mentioned was the torque on the drum.
Yep.
If you've got 40,000 pounds of concrete in that drum and you're trying to turn it with an electric drive motor, this just like gonna be so much juice drawn out of
Hmm.
that battery. So I am not surprised at all that the drums are smaller. I'd actually be surprised if they're even 6 yard, if they're meant to load 6 yards in them.
Hmm.
Maybe it's a 6 yard drum with a 3 yard capacity,
Yeah. Yeah.
4 yard capacity. That would make more sense to me. Now, another thing that was in that article was the size of the battery charger, 30 kilowatt hour charger.
Hmm.
That that's a that's like a pretty normal size thing. Like you could get that for your house. Like you could get like the Tesla solar panel wall or whatever, the
Hmm.
shingles on your house, the solar shingles. And
Hmm.
if you were going to try and power your house, you would get like that size system would be perfectly fine for even like a pretty good size house too.
Hmm.
So, that's good to hear. I actually wondered, would the charging stations have to be ridiculous? Now, what I was curious though is like, does that one 30 kilowatt charging battery storage device so that you can then charge your truck later, does that only like charge one truck? Like, do you have to have like 20 of those to do 20 trucks?
Yeah, I would think you need like an entire lineup of these chargers because you would need one for each truck every night. I mean, you're going to charge all your trucks every night. So I would think you would need a lineup like you would see at the Tesla or whatever charging stations everywhere. They don't just usually have one. They've got multiple at the lineup there.
Yeah, well, now you're running into another problem, which is footprint. You got to take space out of your plant's area which tells me that it's going to be another one of these situations where not every plant is going to be able to have electric trucks because they just don't have the space for
Hmm.
all these charging stations. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to park your truck somewhere, so you got to have space on the lot to park your truck. So maybe there's a way that you can have these charging stations in the exact right spot. But how are they recharging the battery cells? Are they charging during the day with solar panels? Where are you putting that at? Are you
Hmm.
are you running underground electrical to them straight from where? I don't know,
Hmm.
man. But it's cool. The trucks are cool. I imagine they'd be incredibly quiet on.
Yeah, I would think. Yeah, I would think so. And looking at them, like they showed pictures of them in the article, I'll try to describe them so you can kind of understand what they look like. So the cab looks like one of those just like snub nose semi trucks. where it's just flat. The front of the truck is flat, and in the trucks that I'm talking about, the semi trucks, the engine is like either behind, under the driver, whatever. I forget exactly where the
Or
engine is located.
like the city buses that have like the flat front.
Yeah, exactly. And behind that, it's just a regular size cab. There's no like, um, it's not a double cab or any. There's nothing behind the driver that I can really see. But behind the cab, it looks like is where all those batteries are because it kind of looks like a big Generac, if you know what I'm talking about. It looks like one of
Oh
those
yeah,
things.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Looks like one of those right behind there. So I would imagine that's where all the batteries are held. And then behind that, it looks like a regular concrete truck, just a little smaller. So,
Yeah, well, if you're doing rear discharge, you almost probably have to have the batteries right behind the driver.
mhm.
Hope that's not dangerous.
We're going to find out.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
But
as soon as something happens with one of those things, I mean, there's going to be articles galore about it.
did you
Um,
see like they tried to do electric city buses and like the city buses were like catching on fire and stuff?
wow,
Yeah,
where was
yeah.
that?
In the United States.
Whoa,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So just keep your head on a swivel if you're out there driving electric concrete trucks.
man, that's something. But anyway, yeah, that was a cool article, just kind of as a follow up of our discussion from a couple years ago. And it turns out Europe and Australia, they're really buying into this. I mean, there's I don't know how many companies, truck manufacturing companies that I saw that are making these electric concrete trucks. So they're getting in it.
Yeah, well, good for them. I got nothing against it personally. I have at it as long as you've got the mineral resources that you can source ethically. You've got the power that you can generate sustainably, and you don't want to yell at me for any of that. Then I'm okay with people wanting to make their cars electric if they want to do it. I got no problem. Now you're gonna have to fight the eco activists like Joey Bell who aren't gonna let you mine the critical minerals in your home country. But after that, I think everything's fine.
Yeah, I mean that's all you got to put up with, just little old me. But
Well, yeah, I don't have another current event, even though we've actually got a couple things we want to do deep dives on. Actually, our guest today is so awesome. I think we should probably just get right into it.
yeah, absolutely. I mean he's very well known in the southeast, and his father is very well known in the southeast. And who we're talking about is Mr. Scott Kelley from Heidelberg Concrete down in Birmingham. We've known Scott for several years. You got the opportunity to meet Joe Kelley several years ago before he retired. I never got to meet Joe, but Scott has. I mean, if he's one of those top couple of guys, we talk about Ryan Betts all the time. He's up there with Scott as far as if I have a concrete or cement question, he's the first guy we go to, and he's very very helpful. He's helped us a lot over the years with a little bit of everything. But and full disclaimer, about 15 to 20 minutes into our interview, you will notice at the beginning of the interview until about 15 to 20 minutes in, the audio is not what it is normally. It sounds like you're on a Teams call. And that is 1000% my fault because I forget exactly what happened when we were setting everything up. We actually did all this on location at Scott's office. And I restarted something, I redid something, and something wasn't set right in the soundboard and with Riverside that we use here. Anyway, I didn't click the right button, so the sound just sounds like a Teams call for the first 15 to 20 minutes. And then I realized that, call a timeout, switch everything back over, and the audio is fine after that. So just a disclaimer for everybody out there that I messed up the first third of this interview, but you can still hear us great, and the content of the interview or the discussion really is, we did not want to cut that out because Scott is a plethora of knowledge, and he is just loaded with all kinds of just history of concrete industry in Alabama.
Yeah, you definitely want to hear his origin story, even if the audio is not the the quality that you expect from us and for the first 15 minutes or so. Also, I want to say thanks to Joey there. That's hand up accountability. Appreciate that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, stand on. That's why people keep coming back here. They know that everything we do here is authentic, and we tell you day one that we're not audio engineers, we're concrete
Mm-hmm.
guys. So we appreciate you hanging in there when we do mess up from time to time.
Yep, I appreciate that. I am never afraid to say I messed up because I do it a lot.
Well, the problem with being in like the concrete and mining space like we are, the only way you learn your lessons is you learn them the hard way. So
Oh yeah.
we know now that you better click that button.
Yep. Yep. And then when you're married and you have two toddlers, you realize how wrong you are even more so.
I can't. I'm not even going there. Let's get to Scott Kelley. All right, welcome back into the Add 10 Gallons Concrete Podcast. We have the greatest celebrity in the state of Alabama in the concrete world. We're just talking about it. He might not be local anymore. He might be a national celebrity. We've got Mr. Scott Kelley. Thanks, sir, for coming on the podcast.
Man, this is great. Thanks for inviting me, and this is fantastic. I have been in this game for a long time, and I can finally now say that I have made it. My career is a success. I'm on the Add 10 Gallons podcast. I can retire. And so
Next stop, Oprah.
yeah, that's right.
Please don't retire just
Yeah.
yet. You're like in an interesting spot in the concrete world here in Alabama. Like your dad was like one of the most well-known guy, very well-respected guy. What it's like to like coming into an industry where you're not necessarily Scott, so you're hey, that's Joe's kid.
Yeah. No, it's been fantastic, to be honest with you. You know, it's been great to have him outside of being my dad. He is the smartest man I know when it comes to ready mix concrete and in a lot of areas in life. But since we're just talking ready mix concrete, he is extremely smart. He's been around for a long time. In the concrete industry, and so I've been able to learn from him my entire life. Really, I've been in. I think the first concrete plant I went into, I was about 4 years old, and I believe it was Vogel Nuclear Facility. He was doing that plant over in Georgia. It's about I think it was close to 1 million yards of concrete in that job when Vogel was getting built. And I remember walking into the plant at 4 or so and seeing all the big trucks and the big equipment, and I was hooked. It was the greatest thing ever. And then, being able to be in the industry and work beside him for 15 years before he retired a couple years ago, just learned a tremendous amount from him and other mentors as well. But, just him being my dad as well, it was also at the house. It was learning, and him teaching. And so, but and he has a great reputation here. And within the industry, within the country, really, and within ACI, and so you're right. I've been to a lot of places where I didn't know who the person was, but he said, "You're Joe Kelley's boy," So I have that people say we look alike as well. So I don't know about that. I don't see it, but
I don't see it either.
Yeah, people say we do, but anyway, it has been. It's fantastic,
Is he one of those guys? I know when you get in this industry, you pretty much never leave. It's like you're in it for life more often than not. Does he kind of still keep his finger on the pulse around here through you? He asks you what's going on. He likes to be involved that way.
Absolutely, yeah. No, he's still kind of involved. So he retired, of course, and then a few years ago. But then he kind of got involved with the local association, the Alabama Concrete Industries Association. So the association kind of uses him as a tech service guy when they need somebody, if they have a member that has a problem or something like that. So he's still involved, a good bit. But yeah, we do have conversations as well about what's going on at work and, how's the industry and how's volumes and, and all that good stuff, as well. So.
Yeah, so it's funny. Your dad has helped me so many times, and he didn't even mean to. And I'll tell you how. So he and I first met back in about 2014, 2015, and Gary Knight brought me over here to meet him. And Gary Knight said, this guy's got this ActiGel thing. You should take a look at it. And how many fly-by-night companies have come through his door asking him to look at something, and he said, all right, I'll hear the young man out.
And he started playing with it, and he was like, okay, maybe this is something. He spent 4 years looking at the act show before he finally told the bosses, like, yeah, if you want to, you can use it. And then he retired. But that, him telling people, yeah, you can use it if you want, that small little phrase, that was like a green light. And there are so many people that are like, wait a minute, this is the thing that Joe Kelley said you could eat. Yeah, this is the same thing. Like, oh, okay, we'll look at it then.
Yeah. No, it is that way. I mean, and Gary's another one, that was a good mentor, that I was able to work beside. And actually, you was talking about it being kind of in your blood and not being able to get out of the industry. I did leave the industry, the ready mix side, for a short amount of time, but it was really to go work under Gary Knight, because there's I call it a lot of gray hair in this industry that is leaving, and retiring out, and they're taking this knowledge with them, and why not go soak up as much of it as you can while they're still here. So I had an opportunity to go over to the cement side of our business and work under Gary Knight for a while. Again, as another mentor and a legend in the industry as far as I'm concerned, and so learned a tremendous amount before he got to go out the door. And then I was in the cement world for about 4.5 years. And then you don't hear this happening too much, but I left cement and came back to ready mix, and so I'm that guy. I'm that guy. That done it. But again, it was a great opportunity, and I enjoy the ready mix side of things, and so was able to come back within the same company and run the QC department for our southeast region down here.
Gary was an interesting one because he had all that knowledge, and he could have, if he wanted to, he could have just sat in his little ivory tower over there in Atlanta and just kept playing and just been Mr. Cement. And he wasn't like that at all. No. He couldn't have found a nicer guy, and he wanted to share that knowledge with everyone he came in contact with.
Yes,
couldn't have been a better human being. So why the quality? Did you always work in the quality department? I've only known you work. We'll talk about your role you have right this second, but historically, I've only known you in the quality department.
No, I started with a shovel, and so back in the late '90s, I guess, and at our Bessemer plant, and then graduated to a loader, and been very fortunate, to be honest with you. Been able to do almost every aspect of this industry, with over the years, and so run a loader for a while, then was able to kind of went up through the ranks as a batch man, batched a lot of concrete, got into mobile for a little while, done some mobile concrete, put up plants, took down plants, done some traveling, was able to see some good sized projects, around
That's
the
hard
southeast.
work.
It is.
Mobile plants.
A lot of hours for no pay, and so it was the way it was.
Well, you know about that, Joe.
Yeah. So if you're looking for a career choice, young people, if you like long hours with no pay, come on. We got it. No, it's been good for me and my family. It really has. This industry has, and so it has been fantastic. And so it was back then. It was long hours though. It's long hours and doing mobile jobs, and then came back from the mobile side of things and started into. I've always kind of dabbled in the QC. Blame Joe, I guess my dad on some of that. And just through osmosis, you just kind of absorb some of it. And so the technical side has always been intriguing to me, and so was able to get into the QC world probably in 03, 04, something like that, and as a tech, and then just kind of done field work, got into the management roles in the whole 9 yards. So it's been that, as they say, the rest is history.
Wow.
And so
concrete QC people are my favorite people, and you've got one of my favorites on your team, Daryl Butler.
Yes,
who's one of my favorite human beings of all time. I love guys like Daryl because you'll be with them and their phone will ring 10 times in an hour, and on the other end you can hear Chicken Little, whoever that is, whether it's his guy or whoever's the contractor on that job site, just a screaming, and his blood pressure never raises at all. His heart rate never increases, and he just listens and he goes, "All right, did you try this?" And you can just hear him just silent. No, I ain't tried that. He's like, "Well, let's try that and get back to me." And nobody ever calls him back. They don't call him back and tell him he did a good job.
Daryl is a huge asset for this team down here, and has been for 20 plus years. Daryl run our lab for a long time, as well, And
no, I didn't know that.
Yep, he run the lab for our concrete lab for years, and he's another one that kind of started in dispatch and kind of done a few things, and then got into the lab and the QC side and was running our lab for a long time, and then he's in the role he's in now, and just kind of a senior QC guy, and he's got a wealth of knowledge and is a huge asset. And you're right, Daryl doesn't lose his cool. As frustrated as he's probably even been at me at times, but Daryl doesn't lose his cool, and he is a great asset to this company, no doubt.
He's the man. So on the QC side, so I want to touch on this like just real quick. So when we talk to guys that are, when we're talking to the audience, we're talking to maybe people that are still in school that are listening to this, that maybe they're getting a concrete degree like we are. The greatest advice I felt like I ever got was from Dr. Heather Brown, and she told us while we were in school was, go work in QC.
Yes.
And I didn't even know what that meant at all.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, I'll go work in QC. Like I had no idea. But I think that is the answer for guys. I don't know of a better path that you come in and you learn the business and you learn why it works.
Yep.
When you're mentoring folks or folks are coming to you for advice about getting in the industry, what do you tell them?
The QC side of things, what I've always enjoyed about it is the why behind. You're trying to find out the why things happen and why did it do this, why did it do that. But it also, which is always intriguing, and it changes every day. It's not a come in and a mundane, I'm going to do the same old every day. It's a different day every time. Whether it's ambient conditions have changed, you've got to change the way you handle. Materials are constantly changing. And so, especially today, we've got our materials are just all over the board, with changes that are happening. And
what do you mean? What do you mean by that?
Well, just new materials coming in. You've got new
changing sand sources and rock sources.
Well, you've got different cements that are coming in now with the 1L cements. You've got reclaimed fly ashes that you're looking into now. These beneficiated fly ashes and stuff like that. And so. It is ever changing. Just the world of fly ash on its own, with just collected fly ash, Class F fly ashes. Just a constant testing and adjusting your concrete for air contents and that type of thing as well.
It's tough when those LOIs get up.
It is. If they would get up and stay up, it's one thing, but it's the fluctuations, and so it is. But that's one thing I enjoy about it, and the QC side touches every aspect of the business. It touches the sales side, it touches the customer side, it touches the operation side. So every side, it touches management sides, so every piece of the business is touched by that QC guy, and that's one thing I like is you're not just pigeonholed in a box somewhere. You're running the business. You are kind of behind the scenes, the man behind the curtain, as they say, making sure these mixed designs are right and the concrete is what it's supposed to be,
It's incredible. So I like the QC side as well because of the why behind the why.
Yes.
That's exactly what I like about it. One of the things that ends up happening is there's not. I don't know if there's a right way to say it. Like there's not enough people that are trying to learn the why behind the why. But you realize there's only so many of us that want to know that why behind the why, and then can remember like, oh yeah, when this happens, this is the reason, and this is how you solve it.
Yeah.
And I only know that because I have conversations with those people all the time. They used to call me looking for advice. Now I'm always calling them. I'm not a resource anymore. I guess I'm not smart anymore. Tim Hertek up at Sylvie Concrete. I mean, he's seen things you just can't even imagine.
Yeah.
The wealth of knowledge yourself. Ryan Betts.
Yeah.
He bounced from. He never came back from the Smith side.
He
let Ricky Mix went off. Rick Tilson over there, and these guys, they know the why behind the why.
Yes.
And there's always fun to ask them. So now you're one of those people that does know that. So do you get calls? How do you handle those calls? If it's inside your department, other companies, it could even be friendly rivals that are calling you saying, "Hey man, I just ran into something I ain't never seen before."
Yeah, no, it's I at the end of the day, it's the same industry, and we're all fighting the same battles. No matter what sticker you have on your shirt, and so. If there's a problem with concrete, and it's where I can assist, I'm going to help. I enjoy, because there's a lot of things I haven't seen before as well. I've been in this game, I guess, a while now, since the late 90s, and have been very fortunate to be able to see a lot, but haven't seen it all, and so I'm constantly learning and researching things, and so I do try to help. I do get those phone calls at times from other parts of the country or wherever, and so and it's good to be able to be an assistant in those and maybe help solve a problem, and that's one thing I do enjoy, is being able to help someone move forward with a project, because it can, somebody having an issue on especially a major project with a concrete question, then it becomes a showstopper. It's a hard stop a lot of times.
Can't sleep, especially when you're in QC side.
That's right.
You can't sleep. Because,
Yes.
the mass pour's not going right. And if you don't get that foundation down, that arena's not going up. There's some tough jobs.
Please hold. And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
All right, so you touched on something really interesting there about helping people around the country. When we go around and we try and get people introduced to Actigel, we run into some interesting things too.
I bet.
And Joey maybe ran into the most interesting one, where this guy was interested in using man sand, but he wasn't sure because he uses river rock and river sand, and now he's got to use these angular particles. And Joey looked at him and he was like, yeah, no problem. Do you remember what else he said about the cubical aggregates?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he couldn't believe that basically everybody east of the Mississippi used crushed stone in their concrete. And
not just crushed man sand.
No, like crushed stone, like limestone, whatever.
Granite.
Crushed stone, because like Paul said, he was used to river rock, gravel, nice, smooth, just water-worn stone.
Yeah.
And so when this man sand was kind of thrown in his lap unexpectedly, and also this crushed stone, like he had zero clue like what to do. He was completely out of his element. And so that just like goes to show just how different, different parts of the country are.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I am not ever going to claim to be any kind of expert in concrete whatsoever, because there are absolute geniuses amongst the industry. But it was like I brought fire to this man, putting mixed designs together with crushed stone, and they worked. We used.
Believe it.
Yeah, we used. It was like an upper echelon of man sand. It was at least 80%, if not 100% man sand with the crushed stone.
Wow.
So 2 aggregates that he had never used in his entire life. But yeah, it was just like, they think I'm a god, in this village.
Yeah, he threw him way off. He didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
It was. Well, in your experience, you ever seen anything quite like that?
I was sitting here thinking as you were talking, just some of the funny stories, I guess, that you run into on projects or whatever. And one comes to mind. One time we were doing a job downtown Birmingham, and this has been several years ago, and it was 2 a.m. We're right in the middle of a 500-600 yard pouring a deck, and on a project, and we're about 100 yards in, and they had this young project manager. I don't remember his name now, but he was a young project manager that was on site, and he's walking around with his clipboard, and he comes over there, and all of a sudden I see him running towards the pump, and he hits the e-stop on the pump and shuts the job down. We're pumping 2 at a time, 4 trucks waiting, and hits the e-stop on the pump and says, "Hey, this concrete's supposed to have something in it called slump. I don't know what this is." So needless to say, that superintendent come off of that deck and not so nice a way told that project manager if he ever steps foot outside of that trailer again, he was never going to see that job site again. But yeah, you hit the e-stop and shut a pump down, which is just, it may start back up, it may not, you don't ever know, so, but yeah, so that was just one of them that was kind of coming to mind. I was like, well, this guy's on this project, and but that goes to show you what is out there at times, and what you have to deal with, and where some training needs to happen, know. And so it was a good opportunity, and I kind of pulled him off to the side and said, let me explain to you a little something, and so was able to kind of educate him a little bit in a lot nicer way than his boss did, but
Yeah.
but he understood after I got done telling him what slump was, and so he was, but yeah, it was probably a better way to handle that situation, but he thought he was doing something good, and he was reacting, and if he would have been right, it would have been a right call,
Well, it actually reminds me of one of my first jobs. So I went to work for Lafarge out of school, and the audience may have heard this story before, so apologize. You got to hear it again. I was out. My first job with Lafarge was mostly in the lab. Made a lot of lab creep, did a lot of QC testing, a lot of comparison testing, and just trying to get me exposure. They said, "Hey, you actually helped develop." It wasn't. I mean, I was a young guy. I helped put a bunch of mixes. They're trying to make me feel good about it. You helped develop the mix for this nuclear site or whatever that was going on in Kansas. Why don't you head out there and go see how it looks in the field? So I was so excited. It's 2:00 in the morning.
Yep.
Mhm.
You're out there on the job site, first time ever, and wouldn't you know it, the mix doesn't work. and it's and this is not an Axgel story. This is Lafarge, and the mix just doesn't work, and the contractor's losing his mind. Keep having to shut the pump down. They're having to empty the hopper on the pump. Just nobody's having fun at this point, right? And he comes over to me, and there I am, 23 years old, with a shiny white hard hat and a vest that doesn't have any dirt on it, and I got a clipboard in my hand.
Yeah.
And he's pointing at me because it says Lafarge on my shirt, and he's yelling at me, and man, it don't work. And I said the phrase I'll never say again. Well, according to my spreadsheet,
Oh yeah.
that mix should be pumping just fine. He slapped that clipboard out of my hand and proceeded to say things that I'm not allowed to say on this podcast. And so much like your little project manager. I got back in the truck. I was like, I didn't know what to do. I was shook.
I'll tell you, it's funny what you see over the years. It's you've run into a lot of interesting times, on job sites and stuff. But and there's some that are funny and there's some that are not. There's been some serious times where I was the one receiving the butt chewing, because I was the representative on site and things wasn't going just right as well, and you just kind of have to say, we're doing our best, so we get it fixed.
You got to leave your feelings back at the plant.
Absolutely.
A lot of
it's
times.
a thick skin industry, and so it really is.
That's a good way to put it. Thick skin industry.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we say it like that, and nobody else is going to want to join. We just said all the gray hairs are retiring. We need young people in here.
Yeah, no, we do. Well, I mean, it's not every industry is for everyone. It's not. It's really not. But it's this industry. I like I said, I can't complain. This industry's been very. It's treated my dad very well for a long time. It's treated me very well for a long time. So I say, come on, we need some good young blood in here that's willing to. That's got some thick skin or can gain some thick skin, because thick skin does you good in life. So it's not just in this industry. You need thick skin in life. So,
well, this industry has seen some radical change over the last, let's just call it 4 or 5 years. Basically, right when your dad retired, maybe he saw one else.
Absolutely,
he saw one else cement company. He said, "I'm getting out.
I'm out."
But you work you're on the ready mix side, but it's a cement company as well. So we're not here just to bash and thrash on 1L, but you're one of the rare guys, and we talked about this before we went live. One of the guys that you work for a cement company, you're on the ready mix side, but you're also involved in ACI, ASTM.
Yes.
You're in the technical and, dare I say, academic world, but you're on the ground dealing with the things that you're talking about. You're not just going back and teaching or have a research position in a lab somewhere. Like, you're actually having to deal with those things. And one of the things we all had to deal with was this transition to 1L cement.
Yep.
What's that been like in your experience? If the good, the bad, the ugly, but then I want to get past that a little bit quickly. Say what you say, and then I want to know how do we do it better next time as well.
I will say for my company, and that's kind of the only experience I have. I mean, I have sat in the ACI meetings and in 302 and in those meetings and listen to other areas of the country and it's not all nice stories. It's not all bad stories. Okay. I will say this for our company here. We have a cement plant in Leeds, and we've been doing limestone cement since 2012. And so this is not a new transition for us. Now, back then it was 1157 under the 1157 designation in ASTM, right? So it was more of a performance-based cement. And we've done a lot of concrete with 1157 cement, which had limestone in it. And then we kind of transitioned into the 595 specification, and, kudos to the cement plant over there. We didn't really see, but maybe it was because of the history and the longevity that they had been making it. It wasn't a light switch for them. The light switch had been flipped years prior, and so they kind of had it dialed in a little bit.
You got really good limestone in this area.
It's really good limestone as well, and it's the reason there's 5 cement plants in Alabama, and so it's Alabama, I think, is the 4th largest cement producing state in the country.
Oh, wow.
And so, and so you got 5 cement plants sitting here in the state, because of the limestone deposits, and they're such good limestone deposits. But, for our business, it wasn't this huge change when we went to 595 because of the history of 1157 and just kind of easing it in. And, and it wasn't, we were internal. So, we were kind of the first ones we were the proving grounds for the cement, a little bit. It's easier to put it in your own house before you go put it in somebody else's house, or try to sell it to them. But I did hear a lot of the stories, and I do think that there were some things that maybe could have been done, or more testing that could have been done in different scenarios. Southeast may be a little bit insulated from some of the issues that I had heard from the northern climates of, during cold weather and set times and that type of thing. And, I did hear some of that, but, maybe the Southeast may have been a little bit insulated just because
we saw that ourselves.
Yeah. We just didn't see a whole lot of, speaking for myself, I didn't see a whole lot of set time issues, with us, and, but, I do think that maybe the message was, I want to say accurate at the time. They thought they were going with a good message.
I really think they thought that too.
I do.
I think they really thought.
I can
speak
in
replacement
from our company. There was a lot of testing done, and and you think you cover every scenario, and you take something out into a market with what you believe is accurate. Then a different scenario pops up, that you didn't prepare for, and it starts a different storyline almost, and so. But I do think that the industry came out with what they thought was the proper lines, and said the proper things, but I think a scenario popped up with, cold weather, and it's just, maybe that testing wasn't done in those colder climates or whatever. But
or if most of it was labcrete, and
it may have been
the field testing just didn't take into account, like, what if someone can't get the temperature of this concrete above 60 degrees for whatever reason? What happens then?
And that's some of the stories I had heard, but I'll be honest with you, it was, it has been a little bit of plug and play for us,
That's great to hear.
Yeah, no. And I know from what I'm understanding and conversations I've had from around the country, I may be in the minority there, but I don't know if it's just the squeaky wheel gets the grease, type thing. And all you ever hear is the bad. You never hear the successes, and so, there have been a lot of successes. Matter of fact, if you go down to Leeds, Alabama and look at that new concrete silo that's out there, that's all limestone cement, so it was all done internal, and that was a proving ground for limestone cement in-house. And so they put their money where their mouth was and said, we believe in this product. And they built, a multi-million-dollar facility with cement silos and other projects around there with that, and so I do think a lot of testing went in, but I do think they didn't cover every scenario, maybe.
So we had Ben Lentini.
Yep.
From Heidelberg
No
Cement.
Ben.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay, good. He's up in my area.
Yep, he is.
And I like meeting guys like him that just
he's a young guy.
I sat next to him at a Pennsylvania Aggregates Concrete Association meeting just by chance.
Yep.
And we just started hitting it off, and he realized like what I did, and I realized what he did, and it was like, you want to be friends?
Birds of a feather, right?
But it's nice meeting other young people that care about cement and concrete the way we care about
absolutely.
Cement and concrete. We asked him some of these same questions and asked him, what would you do different going forward? Because more changes are coming. He's a believer that clays are going to be used, calcine clays are going to be used in places where it makes sense. and places meaning like regions, like regionality. And I said, well, what would you do different? Because right now you're getting phone calls, and people are angry at you.
Yeah.
I was like, how do you avoid repeat phone calls? And I liked his answer. He said, next time around, I'm going to treat having my customer change this cement as if they were changing their sand or they were changing the rock. And we're going to work through every test imaginable with their specific materials and their locations. And we're going to just take our time.
Absolutely. And I think that was probably, again, in-house, what we were dealing with. We had just bukus of data from the cement plant and our own lab, and so as we were transitioning over. And so and I would always encourage any ready mix company, it doesn't matter what anybody says, do your own testing, always don't rely on someone else's data, because their data is not going to be your data, and it never is, and so build your own case file on that product or on that material or whatever, and so that's what we've always tried to do here. Doesn't matter if it's internal or not, we're going to, at the end of the day, we're the same company, but that's their business is selling cement and ours is producing concrete and selling concrete,
We encounter that with Actigel daily. Like whenever we go to test with somebody, even if they have, multiple plants in the city, like if they're using different materials or just, it doesn't even matter. Like a plant's going to act different.
Yep.
We have to test at every location that you plan on using Actigel. And we ran into that. We had a block customer that put us into production at a plant that we weren't testing at, and we consistently had issues that could have been resolved with testing. It wasn't that, the Actigel wasn't performing. It's just that we needed to figure out what was going on and accommodate.
The cement thing's a little bit interesting because the cement producers figured out, or at least some did. I don't want to speak for Heidelberg specifically, but some of the other ones I talked to, that they were having a hard time going from making a Type 1-2 to a 1L on the same equipment. They needed to run one product so they could be consistent. So once they got a couple of customers on the 1L, they said, all right, we just got to switch everybody to 1L. So to your point, you're like, oh, yeah. And to Ben's, like, oh, we need to make sure we're testing every single thing. You didn't really have, some people didn't have that chance because we sell 1L now. Would you like it? And I was like, well, no, I'd like 1-2. Well, you're going to have to buy that and rail it in. Like, we don't have rail. All right. Well, we can translate it for you, but now the cost is $200 a ton. And when it was $150 a ton. So good luck. It was tough, man.
Yeah.
It was tough.
Yeah.
So what do we do next time? Is there anything more we can do other than like, let's make sure we're testing each individual plant and their materials as best we can?
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else that you've thought about?
Again, I think it goes back to what you were saying. It's just communication between, a supplier and their customer, and it just has to be, and it doesn't matter if it's a new material or a change in a material or whatever it is, good communication is vital to success in any aspect of business, but especially between a supplier and a vendor or whatever, and so, it is, I think, just more communication and preparing, a customer basis for a change that's about to happen. We're in the process, and I don't want to segue too early or anything, but we're in the process of making some changes within our own company with some back office stuff and some new programs. And so been dealing with, our new QC manager here in the Southeast saying, hey, you've got mixed codes that are about to change. All the coding is about to change. All your material codes are going to change. And so that needs to be communicated to your customers and says, all right, because for 20 years, they've been buying this mix. They know this mix code. Well, now it's going to be this random 8-digit code that really doesn't mean anything. And so, it's a new, but it just comes down to communication. Again, if we just throw this stuff out there and expect the customer to accept it, then it's going to be accepted because it has to be, but it's going to be accepted with a frown on their face, and so
you're changing like an ERP system.
Kind of an ERP system. So we're in the process of changing all of North America into SAP, and so I don't know if that means anything to anybody.
We just changed ours at Active Minerals. We just changed ours.
Yeah. So the process. It's a process.
It was all. Well, Yes,
it was fantastic.
It was a process.
It was a process.
Yeah, no, it is. Any type of change is a process, and so it really is just getting the right communication going forward, and not saying that it's just because there's a hiccup that it's a failure. It's there's going to be hiccups. There's going to be scenarios again, just like the 1L that you try to plan for every scenario in a some kind of software change or whatever it is.
We thought we planned.
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
And
then you especially when you're doing something for all of North America like we are, and so it's U.S. and Canada. And so, you think you cover every process and every scenario, and then you get out there and you're like, okay, well, we had a gap here and didn't see it, or whatever. So we have a pretty good team, put together right now where we're trying to make that as minimal as possible, and try to fill those gaps before there's a go live or a cut over or anything like that, So, but it is very interesting. I can tell you that.
The textbooks call this change management.
Yes, it is. It is, and it is. It takes some good management.
It takes real management.
It does.
I don't know who on our team was involved. I know it wasn't me, and I stayed as far away from it as usual. Because we would have like this consultant lady. She'd call me sometimes, and she'd be like, "Hey, I got a question about this, and this. What were the answers?" And I'd answer her question. It's like, "Great," and she'd run back, and I'd see like an email come out later and say like this whole process drawn out, like detailed process of something that I thought was fairly mundane. And then so I call somebody else. I was like, "Hey, I just saw the most complicated email I've ever seen in my life about what I thought was like the most simple thing." I was like, "What does it look like when you do your job?" And you see their eyes just glaze over, like you have no idea how complicated this is on the backside. And so the fact that you're having to deal with that and you're still able to have a conversation with us, I mean, hats off.
Well, it would definitely was an opportunity to kind of get into a different realm of the business that I have not seen. And again, like I said earlier, I've been very fortunate to do a lot of things in this industry. And so this was one of those notches on the belt that I wanted to get into as well at some point, and so it kind of fell in place, a little bit, and had an opportunity. And so with this whole new system, and so now I guess kind of segueing a little bit into what I do now is doing mix IDs and for materials mix designs for all of North America through this system. So we're developing a standardized system for all mix designs to be created through this central house is what we're calling it. And so there's going to be this team of people called Central House that will delve out all mix codes, material codes, raw material codes for hot mix asphalt and concrete, and all of our raw materials as well. And so it's a huge ordeal, and it is really a big step, and for our company, and so, but I've learned a tremendous amount from these guys that I've been in production for over 20 years, and so this is a different audience, I guess, a different group that I've never, been able to conversate with and have interactions with. Well, now I do within our company, and so I've always enjoyed learning, and this is another thing that I could say that I've accomplished, and hopefully it's a success when we're done with it, So
well, it doesn't stop after implementation.
No,
that's the
doesn't.
key.
Yeah.
And if you think that, I'm sure they probably told you that, but that's the number one thing I learned from this was once you turn it on, like that's just step 4. That's step 4 of 6. Now it's on. Now we got to troubleshoot the things that didn't go right, and then 6 is just maintenance after that.
Yeah, no, it's been a real change for me and my thought process, because again, I'd done what I do for a long time, and so you could almost it was very familiar, and you, not to say that it was easy or anything, because it wasn't, but you can almost do it in your sleep.
Well, there's things you take advantage, you take for granted.
Absolutely.
Now you have to write those steps down. In an order.
And so now being part of this, I've almost had to kind of wake the old brain back up a little bit and learn some things again, and so it's been a new realm for me.
But how do you handle, so every plant could have easily 2 dozen materials that are qualified to be coming into the plant at any time. And so every plant, you're having to code every
Yes.
plant in
Yeah.
every material for every plant.
For every source,
For
not
every
just every material. So you may have one material, you may have a 67 limestone that's at 9 different sources. That's all 9 different codes. And so it is a tremendous amount of work. And so what we've tried to develop is, and it's actually, this has been, they talked about doing this transition several years ago. So we actually started some of this a few years ago, back when I was in the ready mix side very heavily. And it's a smart numbering system, and so it's, we've built out with some of our, guys around the industry that are very QC and tech savvy. Our company's very blessed to have some really good guys within the technical realm across North America. And so, getting these minds together in one room saying, this is what we got to do. What's our best way to do it? And so, find that scenario and then just build something here and then just kind of improve it as it goes and find and fill those gaps. So we have a smart numbering system that handles all the mixed design IDs and descriptions and that type thing. And so it has been a lot, but hopefully this thing goes off without a hitch, and it will be nice to sit back in a few years knowing that this is going to be the backbone of all of Heidelberg Materials, and say that I had a little part in help building some of this.
That's cool.
And so it is, it is pretty cool to be a part of.
Did this happen in Europe first and it worked out and they brought it over here, or you guys kind of started something fresh?
Yeah, no, they have been using it in Europe, but not to the extent that we are using it. We're using it in a little bit of a different manner, I guess, and so it's the same but different, if that makes sense. And so
I'm just laughing at the fact that you have a smart ID, because I was thinking about our product SKUs and active minerals. I don't know about the rest of the company, but Actigel, we have AG0001, AG0002.
Well, that's what we have.
It goes to 6.
That's what we have as far as IDs, but there's a description field that we've built out. That's the description is where everybody's going to live now, and not just the IDs. Okay.
Well, it's funny because we have liquid Actigel and we have powder Actigel, and just the fact that we have 6 different or however many codes for those 2 products.
Well, different packaging types.
Well, different packaging,
Bulks, totes,
still. It's
sizes.
just I don't know.
It's a lot. It is.
It's crazy.
You don't realize until you get behind the curtain a little bit more how big this animal is,
Well, there's one of our teammates. He's in the logistics department. His name's Adolfo, and sometimes he always seems so busy and so stressed out. And I'm just like, man, what's he so busy? And then you get behind the curtain and you see some of the stuff he deals with. Like, man, I'm glad we have Adolfo.
No, it's no doubt.
I'm like, oh my gosh.
I had a friend, y'all may know Lee Thrasher. So Lee was part of the Cemex team for years, and they're on the same system. And he was kind of doing what I'm doing now for Cemex at one point. And so he gave me some early advice. He had heard we were at ACI. And an ACI event, maybe in San Francisco, I can't remember, but about a year or so ago, and he heard that we were doing this, and he said, well, I'm going to just tell you, he said, the old adage of how do you eat an elephant, one bite at a time, he said, just take that mentality into this, he said, don't look at this thing as this huge deal. He said, you just got to deal with your section and then go to the next section, and so that was a great piece of advice. Shout out to Lee, so
that's 2 episodes in a row. Lee's got a shout out.
Lee is a celebrity. And so
2 out of the last 3. 2 out of the last 3.
Yeah.
2 out of the last 3. I think.
I thought it was last episode where Lee had tracked down Paul and I's home addresses and sent us a little care package, with the SEC football schedule,
which was a really nice.
It was awesome.
He sent me one.
So you were on that list too, apparently.
Yeah.
But I would bet he knew your address before he knew our addresses. We still don't know how he got our addresses.
Google is a scary thing.
He privately messaged sorry about that. I didn't mean to scare you.
Yeah, he's stalking you. So
now, if you told me my wife found somebody's address, I'd be like, she's the greatest detective I've ever met in my life. Yep. I really think if you populated every police force with nothing but female detectives, there wouldn't be an unsolved crime.
You're probably right. They are pretty good. I tell you, it's interesting. The way I'm kind of seeing a lot of things now is more technology based. It is. It's even with our own company, it's load assurance, it's in transit monitoring of loads.
Which is cool technology.
It is very cool technology, and I tell this story, and but so several years ago, a friend of mine, Command Alcon is based here in Birmingham.
Yep.
And so several years ago, a friend of mine, he calls me up. He says, I want to show you something and let's have lunch. And I said, fine. So his name's Dale. And Dale, I meet Dale over here for lunch across the street over here. And he shows me this steel rod, and he said, this is what we're working on. What do you think? And I said, Dale, if you can get this thing to do what you say it can do and with accuracy, it will change the industry. And that's where we're at. That's been 6 or 7 years ago. And here we are, it's in every one of our trucks within Heidelberg now, or being implemented in every one of our trucks. This load assurance, or there are the other systems out there too. The in-transit smart hatch, the verifies, there's these other systems out there. And now, and you're seeing these companies like Heidelberg is very forward thinking as far as investing in technology companies. And it's not just cement, rock, and sand anymore. That's not where the industry is. Yes, that's the core of our industry, but it's so much more now. It's becoming technology, and so you've seen Heidelberg invest into the Geotechs of the world and the Command Alcons.
Did they invest in Geotech?
And so,
we like those.
Oh yeah, Geotechs, they're a good group. I think that was a good investment. And so, but I know that I think Holcim or I think it was Holcim has also invested in some technology groups, recently. And so you're seeing a lot of this. And I sit on a group with ACI 304G, which is in transit monitoring. So there's going to be a document published.
Interesting.
Wow.
So we're publishing a document, hopefully this fall. It's going to go before approval. So 304G is for in-transit monitoring. And so what it's going to try to do is give specifiers something to reference in their specifications. So this becomes an accepted technology for accepting test results on a job site. If you can prove that it's calibrated, you may not need a guy out there dragging a slump cone around,
Wow. That's ideal. I brought him up earlier, but Tim Hertak up in Philadelphia, and he was one of the first people up there. He did Sika's version of these hatches.
Yep.
And he put them in, and I asked him, and this was years ago. I asked him, I was like, hey, what's the benefit for you to do that? And he's like, look, I got 9 plants. 7 of them are like right here all together. And I got 2 of them. They're way out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And he was like, if I can see on that truck what that mix is doing, then I don't have to send my QC guy from this important high rise we got going on downtown where everybody and their brother is looking over our shoulder. I was like, and I just know that I'm safely building houses out in the rural areas. Now, we're running out of our allotted time. We appreciate we appreciate you giving us all the time. Time flies when you have fun. Is the next ACI, is that up in Philadelphia, by the way?
It is. It's in Philly.
Well, that's my backyard.
That's your backyard.
So when you come up,
I'm going to be there.
You let me know when you're coming.
Yep.
What day you're getting in. We'll have to meet up, take you out to dinner or something. But with that, man, just really appreciate you.
No, it's
coming on.
This is fantastic. Like I said, I can retire now, so I made it.
Well, I was going to say we're going to do it again, but if he's retiring, then I guess
he can't retire yet. We still need him.
Yeah. No,
we got to wait until you have the gray hair on top there.
Yeah. Well, if it would grow, it would be gray. So
that's not from age. That's from stress.
That's right.
Well, thanks again, brother. We'll talk soon.
All right, man. Thanks.